Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hello.
Welcome to Hawthorne. I'm Julian Slowick, and tonight it'll be our pleasure to feed you.
The curtain rises.
Over the next few hours, you will ingest fat, salt, sugar, protein, bacteria, fungi, various plants and animals, and at times entire ecosystems. But I have to beg of you one thing. It's just one. Do not eat. Taste, savor, relish. Consider every morsel that you place inside your mouth. Be mindful, but do not eat. Our menu is too precious for that. And look around you. Here we are, on this island. Accept all of it. And forgive. And on that note, food.
Welcome to the Eat Your Content podcast. I am your host, Rich Herrera, and we are a family here. We ferment, we liquefy, we spherify, we gel, all to make delicious for all of you. I'm so glad to have you all on, and we are going to be talking about The Menu. So The Menu is a movie that came out around November 22. Didn't hear a whole lot about it myself, and then it came out on HBO in January and is now available on digital Blu-ray and DVD as of January 17th. So it's getting a little bit more in the public consciousness. And I have with me as my guest for today, the Lord High Emperor of Sustenance himself, Chef John Benhase, who is a chef consultant on The Menu. Glad to have you on, Chef John.
It's awesome to be here. I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for your time. So, kind of give the listeners your base of operations, kind of who you are, where you're from, and what you're currently doing.
Sure. I am a chef and business owner in Savannah, Georgia. With three other partners, I own a place called Starland Yard, which is a big outdoor kind of food and beverage venue. Bunch of cool stuff happening there all the time. We've got currently taking a short hiatus from professional cooking because I had a baby not long ago. So spending some time being a dad and doing some consulting and stuff like that, but trying to focus on and being very fortunate in the fact that I get to spend some time with my son, which is not something everybody gets to do, especially in our industry. So I'm very, very thankful for that.
Yeah, congratulations. I saw it on your Instagram with the
bouncing
baby boy.
Only thing on my Instagram, yeah.
I know. It's like you have kids and your Instagram feed changes. So congratulations
on that. From food to babies.
That's right. So thank you again for your time and everything that you're doing. So, I'm from Savannah, Georgia, actually.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I grew up there. Love Starland Yards. Been there a few times. So I love the setup and all the shipping containers. It's just a really cool spot. And Savannah, downtown Savannah is really lucky to have an area like that. So good job with that. Congratulations on that.
We love it a lot, man.
Awesome. So let's talk about The Menu. So The Menu is directed by Mark Mylod, and it's written by Seth Reese and Will Tracy, produced by Adam McKay. Just a cavalcade of stars in this movie. Have Ralph Fiennes as Chef Slowick, Anya Taylor-Joy as Margot, and Nicholas Hoult as Tyler, kind of the three main characters there. But really the MVP for me, I think, was Hong Chow as Elsa.
Good. Yeah.
She was so great as the maitre d'. I mean, just putting the customers in their place throughout the whole movie. And really, honestly, there's no good guys in this movie. I don't think. It's kind of a dark comedic satire. I almost equate it as if you cross Chef's Table with Black Mirror, you kind of get the Menu.
Yeah.
So it's a really great satire movie. I watched it multiple times now. One couple times to prepare for this, but just out of my sheer enjoyment of the film. So, kind of talking through the movie itself. How did you initially get involved? How did they reach out to you, and how did you get involved in it?
That's a great question. I'm still not 100% sure, but I, I have a really wonderful friend who spent a long time working at SCAD, and I think they reached out to SCAD and her trying to find a local chef to kind of, Dominique Corinne and her crew, designed the food for the menu. But then they needed somebody to come in and kind of be the kind of authenticity and kind of actor coach in terms of making sure everything looked really real, and the actors, director, writers, had the tools they needed to make this thing look legit. So Betsy, who is the executive producer with Adam McKay, called me, and then it was kind of a like 2 days later I was on set, and it was a really really quick and a crash course in learning how films are made, but really really cool.
Yeah. So have you worked on any films before this one, or is this
No,
your first?
no, not at all. Yeah, this is it.
So what was kind of when you kind of see how the sausage is made, so to speak, what were some things that were kind of shocking to you, or interesting when you're looking at movie making?
I thought it was all really interesting, to be honest. I'm a huge film and movie buff anyway, and so for me, so many people there are kind of nerding out on the food, and I'm nerding out on what they're doing,
Right.
because um, it's so cool seeing all these people with these really specific jobs who are just kind of masters of these very specific crafts. Um, and I was very fortunate that the first and maybe only movie that I got to work on was such a collaborative, really positive set. So, I was able to come right in and, ask questions, but also be asked questions, and be able to kind of insert myself in terms of giving feedback, and coaching and stuff like that. And it was never ever met with pushback or stay in your lane or any of that stuff. So that made it an easy transition while I was getting my feet wet. And then after a week or so, it felt really natural. And now I've made some lifelong friends from that experience, and got to work with some really incredible people.
That's awesome. Now it was a relatively quick shoot, right? About 8 weeks.
In the restaurant itself, which, as you know, is most of the film,
Right.
was I think right at 8 weeks.
Okay.
And then there was some stuff in terms of filming on Tybee and Jekyll Island, and some of the outdoor stuff, or and then post second unit stuff in terms of getting like some of those like hero, more chef's table shots on some of the dishes and stuff like that, which they did with David Gleb in LA. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was pretty quick for me. It didn't feel quick because I was there every single day. But it was really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, so I want to kind of bring up the chef table of it all. So when I watched the movie the first time, and I went into it blind. I didn't watch the preview or anything, and
Oh, good
I
for
was
you.
yeah, I was watching. I was like, man, this looks a lot like Chef's Table. And so after the first initial viewing, I started Googling it, and yeah, I didn't realize that David Gell was the second unit director on this movie.
Yeah.
Hence why it looks like Chef's Table. And I was like, man, they were really trying to nail a certain aesthetic to this film, which is that high end dining experience, and making it look real and authentic, and especially with Dominic Crenn there, and Ray Fiennes just putting on a performance. You would have thought he was a chef this whole time.
He's
The
just
way
so
he acted.
incredible, man. Watching that guy work every day it makes you really second guess whether you have any focus or drive in your life whatsoever.
So let's kind of break down the movie a little bit, and I guess I should have said this earlier, but spoiler alert for anybody that hasn't seen the menu yet. We're going to be talking about some plot points and some details. So if you haven't watched it and you want to be free of any spoilers, I'd say get back on the ferry and head back to the mainland because the spoilers are coming. So watching this movie, when I first heard of the menu and it was kind of a comedic horror, I'm like, oh great, it's another cannibal menu movie. And I was like, it was nothing like that at all, and it was really great. And at first, you're introduced to all these characters that are, a little unlikable for the most part, and then you're introduced to Margot, who's our audience surrogate. And I was watching the movie and watching Tyler and Margot interact. It kind of reminds me of me and my wife, which is kind of funny. My wife's Margot and I'm Taylor, and to a much lesser degree. I'm nowhere near as obnoxious as Taylor is, but so all the characters are introduced, and you get to the courses, and they're all displayed like chef's table. And it starts off pretty innocently. And the first course on the boat, which is the oysters and the lemon caviar that was made with alginate. The first watching when Margot says, "So it's made with pond scum," and I watched it, and the first time watching it's a funny line. The second time watching it in subsequent viewings, you realize that's what Chef Slowick thinks about the customers that are on the boat, that they're all pond scum.
Right.
So, and then you get to the first course. Now, looking at that first course looked great, and the second course starts a little bit darker. The third course gets a little bit darker, and then if you don't realize what's happening, the fourth course is really where it all starts going downhill. So, looking at the courses of the menu, which one would you say is kind of like, I don't want to say your favorite because they're all they're all kind of dark and have a alternate meaning. But looking at the courses, which one was kind of your favorite in terms of from an artistic level or an intellectual level or from a snark kind of sarcastic level?
Yeah, I mean, I think like you said, they progress, right? So each one is got so much undertone to it and so much kind of tongue in cheek kind of aspect to it. But at the same time, I think with the way Dominique and Juan and Nick, like how they designed each dish, they're very intentional with making it beautiful, and even like, tasting good, but it's still just like kind of like soulless food,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
there's no love in any of that food. And that, that's obviously so different from how they cook at their restaurant, even though it is a 3 Michelin star spot. Their food is still so beautiful and nuanced and delicate, and this food is too. But it's also like does that, like, do you even want to eat it? So I
Yeah.
think for me the course that I most wanted to eat was actually the ladies only course.
Oh yeah.
The crab with the kasabushi, like that was a really cool, and the fermented whey with the crab, like that's a really cool dish.
Yeah. The one with
And
the
that one,
emojis.
yeah, with the emojis.
With the
So,
emojis.
that one flies under the radar a little bit, but for me that was probably the coolest dish from just kind of a culinary nerd out point of view.
Right.
But the chicken thigh with the scissors is pretty spectacular in terms
Yeah.
of visual, and I think it's so intertwined with the plot and so intertwined with how the guests and the kitchen are interacting with what's going on, that I think each dish has its own kind of special place.
Yeah. Speaking of that chicken thigh dish, just to talk about how much storytelling goes into the enjoyment of the meal. So when it's presented, I'm like, oh my gosh, that looks so good. I want to eat it. And then he's telling the story, and I'm like, I don't want to eat it anymore.
Right.
It's so horrible of a memory. It's with his mom being a drunk and his dad being a worse drunk, and the dad, trying to kill the mom back when he was a kid for Taco Tuesday. Oh, that's like, dang, that is dark, and I don't want to eat that chicken anymore. But it looks so good. Uh,
He
for
says it so casually as well.
and
It's
yeah,
just like, oh, Taco Tuesday.
Taco Tuesday. And yeah, it's so casually and he so flippantly tells the story. It's you kind of see how far gone he's gone as a person in terms of his outlook on life and everything else. I think for me, my favorite course, because I'm kind of a snarky, sarcastic person, was that breadless bread course. And the way he
Right.
described it was, you are not the common man. Bread is for common people. You are not common people, so therefore you get no bread. So it's funny that Margot instantly recognized that this guy's insulting all of you, and you're just taking it, and you don't see that he's insulting you. You're too self-absorbed in being there and paying $1,250 a person, that you don't see that this chef is literally insulting you. And that breadless bread course, to me, was, from an intellectual level, was hilarious. I don't know how many times I laughed and rewound that scene just to just to hear him describe it and tell that story.
Yeah, just one of my favorite parts of the movie is well, pretty much anything John Leguizamo does, but yeah, him being like all this shit uh, surrounding the complete absence of
Bread.
bread is actually really good.
I get into it.
Yeah,
And speaking of kind of John Leguizamo, when we talk about all the different characters, you have the um, the tech bros that are instantly unlikable, and then you
yeah,
have the Lillian Bloom, the restaurant critic that kind of thrives on shutting down restaurants, and her yes man of an editor that just kind of eggs her on. The Liebermans that just go because they got money to spend but don't care either way. It's them going to Hawthorne was like us going to McDonald's or something like that. It
it's
just doesn't
just
matter to them.
status. Yeah,
Yeah. But John Leguizamo, I kind of felt bad for him. His character, he's there because Chef Slowick had a day off and he just hated his movie. I was like, oh no, I don't know if you I don't know if you're kind of in the same area as the rest of these unlikable people. And then the poor assistant is like, do you owe student loans? No. Yeah, you're gonna die. So you kind of
yeah.
get to meet
I
the
think
rich moment there.
yeah, I think it pokes fun in a lot of different directions. I think that you know there's different parts of the story where you feel more sorry for or less sorry for
Yeah,
different characters at different times. They all end up just being so pathetic. But yeah, I mean, John John and Amy's characters are you know probably the least hateable in terms of
yeah,
their dynamic and their interaction with it. But I think you look at it as more of like a fable than a reality in terms of the lessons it's teaching, and
right, right.
I don't think any of those people deserve to die. That's so, but it's more kind of the revenge porn, I guess, of the industry than anything else.
Right. And then you get to the fourth course with the mess, and RP sous chef character Jeremy Loudon, with what happened there. And when I was watching the movie the very first time, again, I'm going in it cold. I don't know anything about it, and I realized the courses are getting a little darker. And then I show them spreading out the plastic sheeting. And I'm like, oh no, what's about to happen, right? And then um, Jeremy Loudon, the character, not the actor, the character, sous chef Loudon is having an existential crisis via Chef Slowick, and unfortunately takes his own life. And then everybody's expected to eat, and that's when it all starts going really downhill from there. And that course was like insane. I mean, watching what happened, and then the chef's table zoom in of the course itself. I'm like, I don't care about the food anymore. Like, what's happening? But the
Right.
food, unfortunately, still looked really delicious. And
Yeah, it was a
man,
beautiful play.
it was a beautiful plate, amidst the ugliness of, I don't know, I guess the life of being a chef of that caliber and high end, and somewhat, and the poor guy lost himself in the whole thing and couldn't claw himself back. And that, I kind of had to stop and digest that particular scene and what happened. And unfortunately, you see a lot of chefs going through that, and in your industry, I'm sure, and just kind of losing their own self identity to what's going on. So yeah, I don't know really how much more I can say about that, but
No, no,
that's the
it's a
turning
super
point.
real. Yeah, it's a super real thing, and I think it's a huge turning point in the story and in the film in terms
Yeah.
of kind of snapping you to like a level of focus. Like you get that bang,
Yep.
and you're like, oh shit, this is real.
Yeah.
This is happening. And uh, the guy Adam who plays Jeremy, he's not. There's so many big stars in that film, and he's not in the film as long as there's a lot of the other like characters. But man, he's so good in that moment too, because you're like, oh man, like you just get invested in his kind of suffering so quickly, and then
Yeah.
it's just bam, it's gone.
Yeah.
And then then it's like, and here's his mess. We're gonna roll him up nicely in this
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
this herb blanket and move on with our night.
Yeah, it's insane. Because this is a satire film. It kind of takes a lot of uh, stereotypes to that nth degree. So, for instance, like with the man's folly course, and everybody's outside, and the sous chef there, talking about how she was sexually harassed, by Chef Slowick, and which again is an unfortunate common thing in the restaurant industry now coming to
Super, yeah.
light. Yeah, now coming to light recently with the Me Too movement, and as it should be, to be drug out into the light and eradicated is what
Absolutely.
should be happening. But this movie with the satire takes it to the nth degree and allows her to have a semblance of revenge on Chef Slowick as being a terrible human being, and stabs him in the thigh, which is again a callback almost to that chicken thigh course, chicken al pastor course, with the stabbing in the thigh with his father. So it's just the whole full circle of that. And then after the course, you have I think one of the funniest moments in the movie where all the men go off running, and then the magazine editor gets the Passard egg in the
Oh yeah.
chicken coop. Oh
Man,
my gosh, that
the
was
last
so
one
funny.
caught. Yeah.
Yeah, the last one caught. You get a Passard egg. Here, eat it. You're the last one caught. Congratulations. And then everybody gets drugged back in.
So
Um,
good.
that was so funny, and that's where that dark and that comedy kind of come together. Like you just got off of this really dark moment, and you're immediately kind of brought into that comedy, and you're like, I don't want to laugh, but I'm laughing because
Oh,
it's
you
funny.
you catch yourself laughing the whole film in places you're like trying to correct yourself on laughing. Like,
Exactly.
I should not think this is as funny as it is.
And yet it
But that's
is.
why it's a really smart movie.
Yeah, exactly. And then you get the extra course of Tyler being called out for being a foodie. I consider myself a foodie, and I saw what was happening to Tyler, and I'm like, oh my God, am I like that? Like I was taking some self-reflection of myself being, I have not worked in the food industry, so I'm not a chef. I cook at home. I worked at McDonald's as a teenager, but that's about the extent of it. And I really took some self-reflection. I'm like, gosh, am I that obnoxious? I really don't want to be like that. And then when chef pulls him in, it's like, you're a cook, you need to cook, and puts him on the spot. And then he forces him to start cooking in front of everybody. How much of that did you watch and go, God, I want to take that Yelp elite stupid person and throw them in the kitchen and see what they can do? Like how much of that did you take satisfaction in? And we're in a safe space, so you can feel
Well,
feel free to let loose.
I think they say it really well. Like Slowick says it really well in the film. He says, "You're the reason the mystery of what we do is gone."
Right.
Like the constant documentation and all those people were at that restaurant not really to eat. They were there because they felt more special by being there. Status.
Right.
It's
Right.
and that's what a lot of things like Yelp and review based things do is they take you out of just being in a space and experiencing it and more into kind of the analytical poking holes in it. I don't know, when I go out to eat, it's challenging sometimes because when you've been working in restaurants and stuff for as long as you can, you notice everything, right? It's
Right.
it's just how it is. So I'm just happy to be out most of the time. You know what I mean? So, on the other side of that, people go out to eat all the time and don't really view it as special anymore. It's more just, you know, becoming a part of their identity, and part of that identity is you know, picking apart every ingredient, and it's like sometimes just enjoy it. Like,
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah.
and that's a big part of kind of an overarching cultural thing in our society, not just in restaurants and stuff like, you know, as a microcosm. It's more, very few of us can do stuff without our phones, without our, you know, without our kind of, social media interaction, and instead of just like, you're on an island at the coolest restaurant in the world, man, just have fun.
Just
Like,
enjoy the moment.
yeah. So, you know, again, Tyler deserved to die more than anything because of what he did to Margot. Yeah, I think
Oh, right.
ultimately he's the one who deserved to die the most, out of everybody. But
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with you there. I mean, he knew exactly what was going on and brought somebody there knowing they would die.
right, and thinking that he wouldn't die because he had created this fantasy in his mind that he was special enough, and like, I'm a real foodie, so they, like, once they recognize that, they won't kill me.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, if I can pick out bergamot in this tea, then you know,
I'm cooler than you.
chef will respect me.
Right.
Chef will know me, and he'll know that I'm one of them, and I won't die. And
Yeah.
that's what happens. He's like, oh, you want to be one of us? You're one of us. Let's go. Prove
Yeah.
it.
Exactly. And you know, this film just skewers everyone. It leaves no one untouched in terms of the archetypes that you come across in a restaurant. Even the foodies, you know, that I consider myself to be part of. And so you talk about that he thinks he's better than everybody else. I don't know how many stories of from chef friends that I hear about of Twitter elites, or not Twitter elites, Yelp elites coming in thinking they're somebody and demanding, like, you know, free food, or I'm going to give you a bad review, or something like that. And that's
Yeah, man.
those are the Tylers of the world that you just kind of want to, yeah, put a chef's coat on them and stick them in the kitchen and see what they
It's
can do.
just, it's all entitlement. You know, that's our biggest thing, is thinking that we deserve everything all the
Exactly.
time. And
Exactly.
you know, I grew up, in a way that if we were going out to dinner in any capacity, even if it was McDonald's or whatever, then that was a big deal. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And you thanked your parents afterwards, and you know what I mean. Like, it wasn't just, expected that you could drop $1,200 on a dinner that, uh, that you weren't even really thankful for. You know what I
Right.
mean? Or so I think just the level of, like, from a consumer standpoint of just thinking that you deserve everything is the problem. You know, ultimately it is customer service. So the
Yeah.
chefs and stuff, like, we are there to serve you, and you
Yeah.
know, you should cook food that people want to eat. You shouldn't cook food for yourself. You should cook food that people are going to love. And you know, that's part of what Slowick was doing too, was cooking food for himself, not for the people.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, it's why I love the film, is it pokes fun in pretty much every direction. It's not
Yeah.
just the guests, it's also making fun of fine dining, it's also making fun of obsession, all of those things.
Absolutely. So after Tyler is, you know, put in his place, Chef Slowick whispers something in his ear. We can't hear it. What do you speculate he said, or what do you think he might have said to him? Have
I
you thought
think,
about that?
yeah, I think I thought about it a lot. I mean, there's a few times, because Nick, who played Tyler, is just so good.
Yeah, he's great.
And man, like, he made that character lovable for a while, when
Yes.
not many people could have made that character lovable for a while. Um, but I mean, I think, you know, that take happened a couple different times, and Rafe kept actually just whispering really wild stuff in his ear and trying to make him laugh. So I thought he handled it pretty well. So I never actually thought about it a ton in terms of what Slowick would have said,
Right.
because I was more focused on, uh, you know, knowing that Rafe was saying wild stuff in his ear, and that we were all just trying not to laugh. So
He's trying
yeah,
not to. Nick's trying not to break character, right?
exactly.
That's hilarious. So after all that, we're getting towards the end of the course, and then Margot, finally, Margot's the only one that's really calling Slowick out on his crap, right?
hmm
And finally, she figures out what it is that brought him joy during a moment where she's sent out to go get a barrel for the dessert course, runs into his house calling for help, but finds one picture of Slowick where he's smiling, and it's when he was cooking a burger, back when he was starting out. So towards the end, she's trying to figure out, how do I get out of
His
this?
origin story.
His origin story, right? So she's figuring out, how am I going to get out of this? How can I get everybody out of this so we all don't die? And she finally, right at the end, calls him out and says, you don't cook with love, you cook out of obsession, and I'm still starving. And then, being like you were saying in the service industry, so it's like, well, I don't want you hungry. What do you want? And she says a cheeseburger, and I don't think you can make it, knowing that this is what brought him joy. And you almost see the light bulb switch in Slowick's mind of when he hears a cheeseburger, of making the cheeseburger. So now we get to the part that you are somewhat, have become famous for, and I don't think I've ever seen a sandwich made so well since Jon Favreau made a grilled cheese sandwich in that movie Chef. I don't know if you've ever seen that clip
Oh
of,
yeah, that's beautiful.
it's a beautiful shot. But then Ray Fiennes makes the cheeseburger in quotes, and it all, that scene goes out the window. So let's talk about that process. So now the cheeseburger was always in the script, right? It wasn't a different thing before, and then people changed their mind and made it a cheeseburger. It was always in the script, right?
Yeah, it was always there, and it was again, it was a really cool, open and collaborative set. So I'm sitting there, and the two writers are sitting there talking about what should the cheeseburger be with each other, and I was like, "Hello, I got a great cheeseburger. Maybe maybe this would be a good fit." And they're like, "Oh yeah, so what's your like perfect cheeseburger?" And so I kind of walked them through the whole process and talked to them about it, and they were like, "Yeah, that's exactly what we want. Let's do it. Let's try it." So yeah, it was cool. I mean, I got to make that burger for Dominique Crenn and Ray Fiennes, um, in the middle of a warehouse on like a electric griddle. And if you have never felt pressure in your life, that is a way to put a lot of pressure on yourself.
Right.
It's cooking a burger for Ray Fiennes and Dominique Crenn. But yeah, so it looked great, and it's a killer cheeseburger. And so then it became the burger, and Rafe, I mean, made it look really, really sexy.
Now you were actually, you had to coach him how to do that, right? You were teaching him the moves and the things that would make it look cinematic in the film. So what kind of, I don't know, what kind of boot camp, what kind of cheeseburger making boot camp did you put him through in terms of, this is how you're going to make this burger?
Yeah, we kind of, he watched me make it like all the way through. Once just me making it, then once me making it and talking about it, and then once kind of making it with him asking questions, and then he made it, you know, probably 3-4 times within that same kind of time period, and he just did such a great job. And then, but we did that, and then it was like 3 or 4 weeks later was the actual burger scene. So that was just like the day we had time to do it. And so then we, had to cook it on set, which is completely different. Different smoke, different heat, different, different everything. But he, kind of the same thing. I made it all the way through on camera so they could kind of block the motions and understand where stuff was going to be, and just kind of give him a refresher. And then he came in, and I think he knocked that out in like 2 or 3 takes, man.
I was going to ask how many takes did it
yeah,
take?
really he did, and he was like, I've never cooked a cheeseburger like this. So it really was, he's that good. I think he really is that in tune to understanding how kind of that repetition of motion and the nuance of everything. And man, he is cooking that burger on the screen. That's not like other people's hands or
I was gonna say no stunt hands, right?
No, man, that was all him. And then like that burger they put up on the plate that kind of takes up the whole screen, like that is the burger that was being cooked. That didn't get like swapped for like a prettier one.
A food stylist burger. It was the actual cooked burger.
That's what the burger looked like, man, and it is that pretty.
Yeah, and watching it on screen, and you hear the music change. It's very ethereal, almost like the Gates of Heaven type of music that's being played during this scene.
Like the Ratatouille moment,
Yeah, the Ratatouille moment, exactly. And him and Chef Slowick just smiling through it all, as if for a moment in time, the joy was back for him to cook. And then he presents it to Anya Taylor-Joy. How many burgers did she eat before the take was right?
It was only a couple. Really for that one, it's just like one big bite. So, she is very much vegetarian. So the one she's biting is actually not beef.
Oh, really?
Hers was a Beyond Burger.
Oh, well, it looked pretty impressive still.
I think that was like the food stylist team, who, they made a bunch of different, all real ingredients, but they made a bunch of different Beyond Burger kind of replicas, but they were making it kind of in the moment. So it was still hot and still melty and all that stuff. And then, but that, I think it was only a couple takes, but she, did that big bite, and that's a cheeseburger.
Yeah, exactly. And then the joy comes back, and then she asked the pivotal question, can I get this to go? And there's that moment in time where you wonder, is he going to let her go or not? Yeah, smart move, right? And then so he packs it to go and lets her go, and then she kind of walks towards the door, looks back, and Mrs. Lieberman kind of waves her through like, we all deserve punishment, but you don't. Go on. And then at that point, I think everybody accepts their fate of what's happening. Which brings us to the dessert course, which as they were spreading that out among the floor, I'm like, this is Alinea. And this is very much inspired by Alinea and Grant Achat's famous dessert spread on the table. Again, that's an indicator of David Gelb's influence, I'm sure. Were you there for that, to kind of see all that being spread out?
So, no, that was I spent a lot of time on that. So David Gleb didn't come in, but he was only second unit, so he actually didn't even get hired for this stuff till we were done shooting. So that was a intentional kind of ode to choice made by the writers and made by Ethan, who's Tobin, who's the production designer. But yeah, so that scene was wild. Ethan kind of had this design. They took a picture of the entire space from a bird's eye view, and then laid out how they wanted the dessert to look. And then, we had to work with the background actors to get those motions right, to get the swirls and get the all of those things. And then there's a guy going behind and creating the same shapes out of silicone. So
Oh wow.
all of that was actual food. Like, so all that stuff going on the ground was like graham crackers and like melted marshmallow cream, and all of that stuff was actually pretty much all like edible stuff. But then, once it all got laid out, then it was replaced with these kind of perfect silicone things so that people could walk on it and, and stuff like that. But yeah, it was a huge undertaking. And Ethan, the production designer, I think there's a lot of Oscar nominations that should have happened for that movie that didn't. But
I was going to ask you that the Oscar snub.
But production design, man, what a beautiful set, and the design of that restaurant. But then that dessert by itself, I felt like deserved an Oscar. But yeah, it was cool. I don't know, you've been to Savannah, but have you ever been to Chocolate by Adam Tironi?
No, I have not been there yet.
Yeah, so he's a chocolatier here, and he built all of those like big white chocolate domes and the chocolate hats, and
so he made the hats for the movie.
Yeah. So all of that stuff was actual chocolate too. So
oh wow,
it was pretty cool.
Did he make the marshmallow life straight jackets?
I think that was made by costume or set design, but yeah, they had like actual like powder on them. Like when they took it off, they had like the sugar powder residue on everything.
That's funny. And I think too, I was reading an interview with Dominic Krenz somewhere, I can't remember, but I think this is one of those few movies about food where real food was actually used, like real
all
edible,
the way through, man.
All the way through. All the courses, every plate that was set down on the table of all the diners was all real food that people could eat.
Yep.
So that's amazing, the attention of detail that they wanted to have for this movie. Like beyond it being satire, they wanted the food to be real.
Yeah, I think that was one of her big stipulations. And then Kendall, who was the food stylist, had a team, and that is a really different beast to tackle than food stylists. They usually are able to use a lot of different tricks to make stuff,
right,
hold up for multiple takes and stuff like that. But in this, every take we're all like running around to replate. Especially the food stylist team, like, I'm not trying to include myself in how hard they had to work for each take, but they're in the background between shots, getting everything ready for the next shot. Like I said, like the burgers, or everything that was in the kitchen at all times was in the background, was edible and getting ready for the next course. So it was a really interesting. There's very little movie magic. It was cooking.
Yeah, so I'm guessing the crew and all the stagehands and the camera people were eating good every night, because that food had to get eaten at some point.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of cheeseburgers handed out and a lot of pieces of steak handed out and stuff like that. So yeah, it was cool.
So the grip is like, please, no more scallops. I can't eat another.
Right. Some of those scallops, that was where some of the cool food stylist stuff came in. Is like Kendall knew that you could make potatoes look like scallops.
Oh,
so
wow.
there's like hole punch potatoes that then were seared like scallops. So a raw scallop sitting on set for a few different hours, when people were taking bites of it, it would be a scallop, but otherwise it was still very much edible and seasoned and everything, but it was potato.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
the taking a peek behind the curtain of Hollywood movie making.
Exactly.
So yeah, I was a little disappointed on the Oscar snub too when I was reading the Oscars, and I was like, they got nominated for Golden Globes, but no Oscar nominations at all. It's like, come on, somebody's wrong.
I don't pretend to be an expert, but
So I know we got to wrap up. Your time with this has been very generous. So I'm just going to ask you this last question: how often do you hear that clap in your sleep?
not in my sleep. I'm sure a lot of the actors who played and played the kitchen, background actors and the sous chefs. I'm sure that they got real tired of that clap, especially the background actors who had to come to attention every single time that clap happened. And I mean, the amount of times that was rehearsed and choreographed and walked through over and over and over again, I'm sure that clap drove them absolutely bonkers. But I was not affected by it the same way.
I can, yeah, all those poor background chefs that you were helping make look chefy.
Exactly.
They were getting the
they were losing
bad
their
end of the
minds
clap.
also. Yeah, they all knew they were going to die too. So.
Well, Chef John Benhase, thank you so much for your time and walking us through the movie. And folks, if you haven't seen it, it's streaming on HBOMax now. Go check it out. Again, thank you for your time, and I appreciate it.
Well, thanks so much for having me. It was fun.